My grandfather left me 900 acres worth millions. But at his funeral, the HOA president stormed and screaming, "Where is the will?" What she did next destroyed my family until I found Grandpa's secret that changed everything. If you're dealing with property drama or an entitled HOA, you need to hear this. Watch until the end because the revenge is chef's kiss. Subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ for more insane property battles. My name is Marcus, and 3 weeks ago, I buried the greatest man I've ever known, my grandfather, William Hartford. Now, before we get into the absolute chaos that's about to unfold, let me paint you a picture of what we're dealing with here. My grandfather wasn't just any old man. He was a legend in Riverside County, a self-made farmer who turned 40 acres of nothing into 900 acres of prime agricultural land worth an estimated $12 to $15 million. Yeah, you heard that right. $15 million. But here's what made Grandpa William special. He wasn't about the money. Every summer growing up, I'd spend weeks on that property. We'd wake up at 5 a.m., work the fields, tend to the orchards, fix fences, and he'd tell me stories about building this empire from scratch. He taught me about soil composition, crop rotation, water rights, and most importantly, he taught me about legacy. 2 months before he passed, Grandpa William called me into his study. I remember it like it was yesterday. The smell of old books and cherry pipe tobacco. He looked at me with those sharp blue eyes and said, "Marcus, I'm leaving it all to you. The land, the equipment, everything. You're the only one who understands what this place means." I tried to protest. I said, "Grandpa, what about Mom? What about Uncle Richard?" He just shook his head. "Your mother has her career in the city. Richard? Well, Richard would sell it all in a heartbeat and blow the money on another failed business. Venture. But you, Marcus, you get it. You respect the land." I didn't know it then, but that conversation would spark a war that would nearly destroy everything. Fast forward to the funeral. St. Michael's Church, packed with over 200 people. Farmers from 3 counties, old friends, distant relatives who hadn't visited in decades, suddenly very interested in paying their respects. Funny how a multi-million-dollar estate brings family out of the woodwork, right? The service was beautiful. My mom gave a tearful eulogy. I spoke about his legacy. Even Uncle Richard managed to say a few words without making it about himself. And then her appeared. Margaret Chun, president of the Riverside Meadows Homeowners Association. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Grandpa's 900 acres? They were never part of any HOA. He owned that land free and clear since 1967, decades before the Riverside Meadows development even existed. But about 15 years ago, some developer bought the adjacent property and built this cookie-cutter suburban neighborhood right up against Grandpa's eastern border. And Margaret? Margaret had been trying to get her hands on pieces of Grandpa's land for years. See, the Riverside Meadows HOA wanted to expand their community green spaces. They wanted walking trails through Grandpa's orchards. They wanted to build a community garden on his south 40 acres. They even had the audacity to suggest he should donate land for a dog park. Grandpa's response, every single time? Not 1 square inch. This land stays in the Hartford family, period. But Margaret never gave up. She's one of those people who believes that if she just persists long enough, she'll wear you down. She'd show up at town council meetings, file noise complaints about farm equipment, send certified letters about property boundary concerns. Grandpa called her the vulture. Now I understand why. So there we are at the funeral reception. We're at the church fellowship hall. People are sharing memories, eating casseroles, crying, laughing, normal funeral stuff. I'm standing with my mom and my wife Jennifer when the doors burst open. Margaret storms in like she owns the place, wearing this ridiculously inappropriate bright red power suit. Not even funeral colors. She's flanked by 2 other people I later learned were HOA board members Brad Thompson and Susan Whitmore. The entire room goes silent. Margaret's eyes scan the crowd like a predator, and then they lock onto me. She starts marching across the fellowship hall, her heels clicking on the linoleum like gunshots. She stops 3 feet in front of me and shouts, and I mean shouts in a room full of grieving people. "Where's the will?" My mom gasps. Jennifer steps in front of me protectively. Uncle Richard actually dropped his plate. I'm in shock. I managed to stammer out, "Excuse me? This is my grandfather's funeral." Margaret cuts me off. "Don't play games with me, Marcus. Your grandfather made certain promises to this community. We have documentation of discussions regarding land easements and community development rights. I need to see that will immediately to ensure those agreements are honored." The absolute gall of this woman. At a funeral. My mom find her voice. "How dare you? Get out. Now." But Margaret doesn't budge. She pulls out her phone and starts recording. I'm documenting this for HOA records. Marcus Hartford, as the presumed heir to William Hartford's estate, I'm formally notifying you that the Riverside Meadows HOA has legal standing in any property disputes, and we will be contesting any will that doesn't honor prior commitments. That's when Pastor Mike stepped in, God bless that man, and physically escorted her out. But the damage was done. The funeral was ruined. My grandmother's friends are crying. People were whispering. The whole beautiful memorial was tainted. And Margaret, as she's being walked out, she turns and yells, "This isn't over. That land belongs to the community." That night, she posted in the Riverside Meadows HOA Facebook group. I'm not even a member, but 3 different people sent me screenshots. Her post said, "Attended a community meeting today regarding the Hartford estate situation. It's clear that certain parties are attempting to monopolize resources that could benefit our entire neighborhood. The HOA board will be exploring all legal options to ensure fair and just outcomes. Stay tuned. Hashtag community first, hashtag property rights, hashtag Riverside Meadows. Community meeting? It was a funeral." The comments were insane. People who'd never even met my grandfather were talking about his hoarding of valuable community land and how it was selfish to keep so much property in one family. I couldn't believe what I was reading. The next morning, I got a call from Grandpa's attorney, Mr. Bernard Hastings. He'd been the Hartford family lawyer for 40 years. "Marcus," he says, "we need to meet. Immediately. And don't talk to anyone about the estate until you do." I drive to his office, and he's got this thick folder on his desk. The will, property deeds, documents I don't even recognize. "Your grandfather," Mr. Hastings begins, "was a very thorough man. He anticipated complications. Turns out, Grandpa's will was ironclad. Everything, the land, the equipment, the water rights, the mineral rights, all 900 acres, goes to me. No HOA clauses, no community easements, no promises. Just a clean transfer to Marcus Hartford. But here's where it gets complicated. Mr. Hastings slides another document across the desk. Margaret Chin filed this with the county recorder's office yesterday, 3 hours after the funeral. It's a claim of adverse possession and prescriptive easement. For those who don't know, and this is important for anyone watching who might face something similar, adverse possession is when someone claims ownership of land they've been using openly for a certain period. A prescriptive easement is similar, but instead of claiming ownership, they claim the right to use your land. Margaret's claim stated that for the past 12 years, Riverside Meadows residents had been using trails that cut through the northeast corner of Grandpa's property. She provided photos, witness statements, even GPS data showing people's jogging routes. And here's the sneaky part. Those trails? They were technically on Grandpa's land, but only by about 15 to 20 feet. Easy to miss if you didn't have a surveyor's map. Margaret had been building this case for years, just waiting for the right moment to strike. Can she actually win this? I asked Mr. Hastings. He leaned back in his chair. Adverse possession in this state requires 15 years of continuous, open, and notorious use. She's claiming 12. She's 3 years short. The prescriptive easement is more concerning because the time requirement is only 10 years, but your grandfather posted no trespassing signs in that area 8 years ago, which should have interrupted any claim. Should have. She's arguing the signs weren't visible enough and that your grandfather's tolerance of the trail use constituted implicit permission. It's weak, but expensive to fight. That's her strategy. Make this so costly and time-consuming that you'll settle and give her what she wants. Over the next 2 weeks, it got worse. So much worse. Margaret filed complaints with the County Environmental Agency, claiming agricultural runoff was affecting HOA property values. The Water Board, claiming Grandpa's irrigation was depleting neighborhood wells. Completely false. The Zoning Commission, claiming the property should be rezoned from agricultural to mixed-use residential. And she organized a petition with 347 signatures demanding the county use eminent domain to seize part of the land for public benefit. Every single day, there was a new letter, a new filing, a new attack. My wife, Jennifer, was ready to fight. We can't let her bully us. My mom was worried. Marcus, maybe we should just give them one of the back parcels. Make this go away. Uncle Richard, predictably, suggested selling everything and splitting the money. But I remember what Grandpa said. This land stays in the Hartford family. Then I got an idea. I drove out to the property, my property now, and I started going through Grandpa's files in the old farmhouse office. Grandpa was meticulous. He kept records of everything. Receipts from 1973. Tax documents from before I was born. Correspondence going back decades. And that's when I found it. A locked metal box in the bottom drawer of his filing cabinet. Inside, a folder labeled Riverside Meadows, Insurance. What I read in that folder changed everything. Okay, so this is where the story goes from bad HOA behavior to absolutely nuclear levels of property drama. And if you're enjoying this, make sure you're subscribed to Neighbor Wars HQ, because we cover these insane property battles every single week. Hit that notification bell, because trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Inside that folder were 15 years of documentation. My grandfather wasn't just dealing with Margaret's harassment. He was documenting everything. Every HOA meeting mention of his property. Every complaint she filed. Every conversation. He even had recordings. Apparently, Grandpa had installed security cameras on his property boundaries years ago after Margaret first started her campaign. But that wasn't the bombshell. The real discovery was a series of letters between Margaret Chun and Riverside Meadows' original developer, Carson Properties, LLC, dated 2010 to 2012. Here's what I learned. When the Riverside Meadows development was first proposed, Carson Properties approached my grandfather about buying 200 acres of his land to expand the subdivision. Grandpa said no. So Carson Properties tried a different approach. They offered Margaret Chun, who was already on the HOA board at the time, a secret deal. If she could convince my grandfather to sell, she'd receive a $150,000 consulting fee plus a premium lot in the expanded development. Margaret's response letter was stunning. She wrote, and I quote, "William Hartford is a stubborn old man, but everyone has their price. I'll begin applying pressure through community channels and legal means. One way or another, we'll get that land." But wait, there's more. When Carson Properties eventually went bankrupt in 2013 before they could buy Grandpa's land, Margaret continued the campaign on her own. Why? Because she'd become obsessed. In emails to other HOA board members, she talked about the land like it was already theirs. She made plans for it. She even got the HOA to approve a $50,000 land acquisition fund under the guise of future community development. My grandfather had documented all of it. He knew exactly what Margaret was doing, and he was waiting. There was a handwritten note paper-clipped to the final document. "Marcus, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Use this wisely. Don't let the vultures win. The land is yours. Make me proud. Grandpa." I sat in that dusty office and cried. Even from beyond the grave, he was protecting me. I immediately scanned everything and sent it to Mr. Hastings. His response came within an hour. "This changed everything. We're going on the offensive." The next day, we filed a motion to dismiss all of Margaret's claims based on documented harassment. But we didn't stop there. We filed a countersuit against Margaret Chun personally and the Riverside Meadows. HOA 4, harassment defamation for her social media posts, calling my grandfather selfish, and claiming he'd made promises he never made, intentional infliction of emotional distress for disrupting the funeral abusive process, for filing frivolous legal claims, and here's the big one, conspiracy and fraud for her undisclosed financial interest in acquiring the property. We sent copies of the Carson Properties correspondence to every HOA member in Riverside Meadows, along with a letter explaining that. Their HOA president had been using their dues to pursue her personal vendetta. The reaction was immediate. The HOA Facebook group exploded. Members were furious. Turns out, most of them had no idea Margaret had been using HOA resources for this fight. They thought it was about community trails, not a personal crusade. Within 48 hours, 3 board members resigned. An emergency HOA meeting was called. And the best part? The HOA membership voted to remove Margaret as president by a margin of 89-12. But Margaret wasn't done yet. This is where Margaret went from annoying HOA president to legitimate threat. After being removed from the HOA board, she showed up at my property at 6:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. I'm out checking irrigation lines when I see her standing at the gate with her phone out, recording me. Marcus Hartford, she announces like she's serving a warrant. I'm here to document the environmental violations on this property. I walk over, staying calm. You're trespassing. Leave now, or I'm calling the police. This land should belong to the community. Your grandfather stole it from the people. You're nothing but a greedy land hoarder who... I call the police right there. She kept ranting the entire time, her phone camera pointed at me, spewing this bizarre narrative about how agricultural landowners were enemies of sustainable development and how I was destroying the environment by monopolizing resources. The police arrived. She refused to leave. She got escorted off the property and received a trespassing warning. That should have been the end of it. But 2 days later, I found graffiti spray painted on my fence. Land thief. Share the wealth. Hartford greed. Security cameras caught it happening. 3 people in Riverside Meadows HOA t-shirts, which was especially ironic since Margaret was no longer president, vandalizing my property at 2 a.m. We pressed charges. They were caught. All 3 admitted Margaret had told them I was illegally hoarding community resources and that direct action was necessary. Then came the attempted sabotage. Someone cut the locks on my irrigation system control boxes. Thousands of gallons of water were wasted before I discovered it. The damage to my almond crop from uneven watering was estimated at $18,000. Someone drove onto the property and intentionally tore up half an acre of newly planted vineyard with their vehicle. Another $12,000 in damages. Someone filed a false report with the county agricultural commissioner claiming I was using illegal pesticides. The investigation cleared me, but it cost time and money and stress. And through it all, Margaret was posting on a new Facebook group she created called Justice for Riverside Land Rights, encouraging her followers that they were fighting the good fight against agricultural monopolies. She created this entire movement around stealing my property. My wife was scared. Marcus, this is getting dangerous. What if they come after us personally? I increased security. Motion-activated cameras every 50 yards. Better fencing. I even hired a part-time security patrol for nighttime. But here's the thing. I wasn't going to be intimidated off MY land. Mr. Hastings filed for a restraining order against Margaret. We documented every incident, every social media post, every interaction. The court date finally came. Let me set the scene. County Superior Court. Judge Patricia Ramirez presiding. She's known as a no-nonsense judge who does not appreciate people wasting her time. On our side, me, my wife Jennifer, my mom, Mr. Hastings, and a binder of evidence so thick it needed its own cart. On their side, Margaret Shun representing herself. She'd gone through 3 lawyers who all quit when they saw how weak her case was, plus about 20 supporters from her Justice for Riverside Land Rights group filling the gallery. Judge Ramirez looks over the filings. Ms. Chun, you're claiming adverse possession, prescriptive easement, environmental violations, and several other complaints. That's quite a list. Margaret stands up, confident. Your Honor, this case is about more than property law. This is about justice. This is about community rights versus individual greed. William Hartford's estate represents everything wrong with Ms. Chun. Judge Ramirez interrupts. This is a courtroom, not a TED Talk. Stick to the legal claims. It was beautiful. Margaret tried to present her adverse possession claim. Mr. Hastings demolished it in about 5 minutes by showing dated photographs of the no trespassing signs that were clearly visible 8 years ago, plus documentation that Grandpa had sent certified letters to the HOA specifically stating they did not have permission to use his property. Then we presented the Carson Properties correspondence. Judge Ramirez actually stopped the proceedings. Ms. Chun, are you telling me you've been pursuing this property acquisition for 15 years, including through your position as HOA president, while having an undisclosed financial interest? Margaret tried to spin it. That was a different situation. That developer deal fell through. My current advocacy is purely about community benefit. Do you or do you not stand to gain financially if this property is acquired for development? Silence. Ms. Chun, answer the question. I believe that as a community leader, I would naturally be involved in any future development plans. And yes, there might be compensation for my time and expertise, but Judge Ramirez had heard enough. I'm dismissing all of Ms. Chen's claims with prejudice. Furthermore, based on the evidence of harassment, vandalism, coordination, and abuse of process, I'm granting a permanent restraining order. Ms. Chun, you are to stay at least 500 feet from Mr. Hartford, his family, and his property. Any violation will result in immediate arrest. But Judge Ramirez wasn't finished. Additionally, I'm referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for potential criminal charges related to conspiracy to commit property damage and fraud. And Ms. Chun, I suggest you hire a lawyer for what comes next. Margaret's face went white. Her supporters in the gallery started murmuring. Some of them got up and left right there, suddenly not so eager to be associated with her. We won, completely and totally. But the judge had one more thing to say. Mr. Hartford, your grandfather sounds like he was a remarkable man who built something valuable and wanted to preserve it for his family. That's not greed, that's legacy. This court will always protect legitimate property rights from frivolous attacks. Case dismissed. Walking out of that courtroom was one of the best moments of my life. My wife squeezed my hand. My mom was crying happy tears. Mr. Hastings was grinning like he'd just won the Super Bowl. Behind us, Margaret was standing alone in the courtroom, her supporters having abandoned her, finally realizing she'd lost everything. So here's where we are today, 3 months after the court ruling. Margaret Chun is facing criminal charges. The DA's office found enough evidence to pursue conspiracy and fraud charges related to the vandalism incidents. She's also being sued by several Riverside Meadows HOA members for misuse of HOA funds. The new HOA board reached out to me, apologized profusely for Margaret's actions, and asked if there was any way we could have a good neighbor relationship. I appreciated that. We've actually worked out an agreement where I maintain a nature trail on the eastern edge of my property that HOA members can use, but it's clearly marked as MY property with proper signage, and I can revoke access at any time. It's working well. Uncle Richard stopped suggesting I sell the land. He actually apologized and said he understands now why Grandpa made the choice he did. My mom has been helping me plan the property's future. We're expanding the organic almond orchards and looking into sustainable agriculture grants. And me? I'm out on that land every day, working the soil, tending the crops, maintaining the equipment. Exactly like Grandpa taught me. I've started keeping my own detailed records of everything, because you never know when someone else might try to take what's yours. The property is worth more now than ever. Developers still call weekly asking if I want to sell. My answer is always the same: no. This land stays in the Hartford family. Last week, I was out in the south field fixing a fence post when I found something. A wooden sign, weathered and old, half buried in the dirt. I cleaned it off, and it said Hartford Farm, EST 1967, built with pride, kept with love. Grandpa's original sign from when he bought the first 40 acres. I've got it hanging in the farmhouse office now, right above that locked filing cabinet where I found his insurance folder. Every time I look at it, I remember what he taught me. Your property, your legacy, your family, those things are worth fighting for. Don't ever let someone bully you into giving up what's rightfully yours, especially when they try to claim they represent some greater good. Margaret Chin thought she could use guilt, community pressure, and legal harassment to take what wasn't hers. She thought that because she wanted the land for community benefit, that somehow made her entitled to it. She was wrong. And if there's one lesson from all of this, It's this: document everything. Know your rights. Stand your ground. And never let an HOA or anyone else bully you off your property. So that's my story. From inheriting 900 acres to fighting off the HOA president from hell to finally securing my family's legacy. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Seriously, this has been the craziest experience of my life, and sharing it with you means a lot. Now, here's what I need you to do. Subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ if you haven't already. We cover insane HOA battles, property disputes, neighborhood drama, and everything in between. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss a single video. Like this video if you think Margaret got what she deserved. Justice tastes sweet, doesn't it? Comment below with your own HOA horror stories or property battle experiences. Have you dealt with someone trying to take your land? An entitled neighbor? A corrupt HOA board? I want to hear about it. The wildest story gets featured in next week's video. Share this video with anyone who's dealing with property disputes or HOA drama. This information could literally save someone's home or land. Remember, your property is your property. Don't let anyone tell you different. This is Marcus Hartford from Neighbor Wars HQ, reminding you to know your rights, stand your ground, and never back down from property bullies. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.